Live from the streets of sunny Southern California. Today is Thursday, June 24th, 2021. I want to talk to you today about some recent developments that a lot of people have been actually waiting, right? And that is the resumption of cruises. You know those cruise ships, folks? Well, there's a guy named Richard Fain, and he is the head of Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, okay? And he had some very, very important things to say today. Well, actually, it's probably up about a week ago, but he's still talking about this. But it's how to deal with the human cattle. Richard Fain is the CEO of Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, and he has put out a video on how they're going to deal with the human cattle. And this is the first time I've ever seen a cruise company dispensing medical advice. But from head to toe, this guy is pushing vaccines. And he made some very interesting points in his video. And there was a sentence that he stated that they have the ability to control the environment like no place else on these cruises. That I am in 100% agreement with that slide, okay? Because they have the ability to control the environment unlike anywhere else. And Richard Fain admitted this. Now, I will tell you that Richard Fain is an ardent supporter of the medical industrial complex's vaccination program. He is promoting vaccines for everybody. His goal is to vaccinate everybody on board. He's already alleged to have vaccinated all of his employees. I think he said 16,400 employees that work these ships have been injected. And his goal is 95% vaccination rate on the Royal Caribbean ships. And they're making exceptions for children for now, under 12. He says until the vaccine is available for the 12-year-olds, then they can get one. But ultimately, he's looking forward to when they can vaccinate down to age 5. So Richard Fain is preparing the human cattle in a very public and literally over-the-top way for what lies ahead. Now, I will tell you that I've been on a couple of cruise ships in my lifetime. You know, I live in Orange County, and in Long Beach, there's a cruise terminal, and, you know, for $150 for you and your wife, you can get on, well, you used to be able to get on a Carnival cruise and go down to Ensenada, and all your food's paid for, all your beverages are paid for, as long as you don't drink any alcohol, and then you could get off in Ensenada and go fishing, which is what I enjoyed, right? Or you could get off in Ensenada, go into town, and, you know, get some wood carvings and bring back some nice hats and blankets or whatever. Support the local economy down there. It was fun. But I was very, very aware of my surroundings on these boats when I went. These were the old Carnival imagination, Carnival inspiration. These ships were built in the 80s in Helsinki, Finland. And they were piloted by generally Italian captains. And the air quality and radio frequency emission levels were of major concern to me on these ships. I would always take my detectors on there and measure the RF readings. And by and large, these ships were very safe in terms of the microwave levels in the cabins, because the ships were made out of metal and steel, and, you know, the Wi-Fi on these ships, and that's actually a good thing for me. The readings were almost negligible. There were no cell signals out there at sea. It was great. You'd sleep really well. About these ships the interior of these ships, because all they literally did was pull raw air off the ocean and, you know, pipe it into the rooms if it was the right temperature. They didn't have to do much to the air. So you didn't have much problem getting a good night's sleep. You didn't have the Wi-Fi keeping you awake. The frequencies were negligible. Up on the deck near the radar beacons, it's not a good place to be. You don't want to play miniature golf up by the radar balls. Not a good place to... You don't want to hang out in front of these X-band transmitters because, well, that's a quick way to really do some damage to you. But my point was that these old ships built in the 80s, they had fluorescent lighting on the deck. It wasn't overly obtrusive, and you know, the microwave levels were negligible. The air quality was awesome. That's not the case anymore on these cruise ships, folks. Richard Fain is preparing the human cattle, and he's been working on preparing human cattle for the last 15 months as they equip all of the Royal Caribbean fleet with the latest and greatest upgraded, weaponized air conditioning systems and Wi-Fi systems. That's right, folks. On those ships, what do you think they've been doing to those ships for the last year and a half? Huh? You think that they've just been in port, just sitting there rotting? You don't think that the white vans have been descending on all these places? Putting in cold plasma reactive oxygen species generating systems? You don't think that in the air conditioning systems, you don't think that they're installing flat panel millimeter wave antennas behind the wallpaper in the rooms or in the common areas? You don't think there are any beamforming systems on those cruise ships now, do you, folks? You don't think for 15 months having nobody around seeing what they're doing didn't give them the ability to weaponize those cruise ships? Well, now Richard Fain is basically telling you, hey, unless you are vaccinated, you can't come on the cattle boat. He's telling the human cattle that they've got to get injected with the government's New World Order vaccine, or you're a threat to everybody, and eventually your children need to be vaccinated. This guy's pushing vaccines as a condition to get on his slaughterhouse, okay? I'm going to tell you right now, folks, that the next major outbreak of something is going to come on one of these boats where they're going to be turning on these systems, and they're going to blame it on who? The unvaccinated, because they're saying that they're going to allow the unvaccinated to come on the ship. They're going to have to pay extra. They're going to have to get tested a whole bunch of times. They're going to get things shoved up their nose, multiple tests, and then they're going to be segregated. They're going to have to wear a mask. They're going to have to wear a special, you know, thing on them that shows that they're not human, right? That they're a threat, that they're dirty, that they're dangerous. They have to have a separate dining area because they're not worthy. They have to sit in the back of the bus, right? Because people that aren't vaccinated are dangerous, according to Richard Fain, and according to his company policy. And so, you know, he says, oh, we have to follow the law of the land in Florida. But what he's really doing is making it uncomfortable, if not impossible, for people to go on a cruise, because if you don't have a vaccine and you go on one of these cattle boats that has upgrade weaponized millimeter wave beamforming attack systems hidden behind the wallpaper, maybe in the flat panel televisions, definitely in the Wi-Fi systems, they've all been upgraded. And the air conditioning systems will have these air purification cold plasma reactive oxygen species generating systems, this bipolar ionization upgrade that has been put on all the ships. He doesn't talk about those things. He talks about how you got to get your vaccine to get on the boat. And if you don't get your vaccine, you got to keep your mask on all the time except between bites. Yeah, you got to sit there on a boat with the cleanest air in the world out on the open sea, and you got to wear a mask, right? Folks, we know who's playing ball. We know who's who. We know what's going on. And for all the reasons I mentioned, I will never for the rest of my life ever set foot on a cruise ship where they can control the environment like nowhere else on Earth. Now, you could take that statement at face value. You could take that statement and extrapolate what was intended by that statement as doublespeak or as factual. But the truth is that on a cruise ship, you are a prisoner. And on a cruise ship, you are a prisoner that is subject to the whims of those in charge of the air conditioning systems and the Wi-Fi systems. That's right, because once you're on the boat, you can't get off unless they let you. And once you are on the boat, you have to breathe the air in your cabin that they bring in. By and large, 95% of the ships do not have windows that open. So you are dependent upon the air that is brought in and delivered through a ducting system that is very easy to weaponize. And by the way, 60 gigahertz millimeter waves can be beamformed through an air conditioning duct system. Most of the materials are reflective. Listen to me. For those of you that want to get back to normal, okay, fine. You think you're ever going to get back to normal? I got news for you. We are never going back to normal. This thing is never going to end, folks. Oh, they'll back off a little bit, kind of like, Emperor will let his victim, go out in the backyard and play, but they're still inside the fence with a gun to their head, right? We are never going to get away from being held hostage by this narrative of this viral operation, okay? Unless people wake up to what it really is. The cruise ships are a very dangerous place to be for the reasons I just mentioned. And this guy is full on in on it, folks. All right? All these guys at the top know what's going on. And there is a goal at the very top to deal with the human cattle, folks. That's why they've created this vaccination program. That's why they're going into villages all over the Amazon and taking people that are 90 and 100 years old that have all their teeth, all their hair, and that have more ripped abs than my 18-year-old, and they're putting needles in their arms. Okay? Listen to me. This is not funny, folks. And the reason I bring this up is, and I've made it very personal, because this guy has actually had the audacity to come out and promote the vaccination agenda, promote vaccinating children, and the most important statement that he made to me, aside from how they admit that they could control the environment on these ships like nowhere else, he said that the vaccinations are the key to everything. Let me repeat that. Richard Fain, the CEO of Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, publicly stated in a video that the vaccinations are the key to everything. So as we are exposing how they are preparing the human cattle for a fate that probably would escape the minds of most, what we can hang our hat on are the two irrefutable, immutable facts that this man has made public. And that is, according to those of his persuasion, according to those of his ideology, according to those of his thought process, according to those who look on us with derision, vaccines are the key to everything, and the environment on a cruise ship can be controlled by no place else on Earth. I'm going to leave you with those words, ladies and gentlemen. I can assure you that no truer words have ever been spoken by someone who was on the opposite side of our equation. Richard Fain, CEO, Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines. No one should ever be forced to be injected with something against their will unless they have been convicted of a heinous crime by a jury of their peers after a fair and speedy trial, and they have been sentenced to death by lethal injection. Under no other circumstance should any human being be compelled to take an injection. So as far as the cruise ships, you guys can shove it, okay? You can shove your weaponized Wi-Fi. You can shove your weaponized air conditioning. You can shove your rigged casino. You can shove your crappy drinks, your cheap booze, your corn syrup-laden dessert garbage, your disgusting glyphosate-laced food. That's right, all the nitrites and sodium erythorbate-laced bacon and the watered-down coffee and the dimethylsiloxane sludge that you fry your food in, and all of those disgusting breakfast items that make you fat and give you indigestion. That's right, you guys can shove it, okay? Because we don't need to get on your floating prison where you can have your way with us and hold us hostage to a vaccination program. Because to be perfectly honest with you, we can go down to the beach, take off our shoes, and check out the scenery that's 100,000 times better than the stuff you got laying around on your decks. And I speak from personal experience. I know what these cruise ships are. I know what they were, and I know what they've become. And I know that this so-called entertainment industry, this cruise industry, is supposedly so vital to the economy. Let me tell you what the cruise industry does to the U.S. economy, folks. It takes a tremendous amount of healthy people and makes them gain about 10 pounds every time they go on there. And the more cruises they take, the more weight they gain, the more drugs they have to take from the doctors. So the cruise industry is feeding people into the necromancy cult of allopathic medicine, okay? We don't need it. I mean, you can't even get a tan on that boat. It's like you're crammed in. A bunch of people are sweating and pissing in the little teeny pool because, you know, they're too lazy to get up and go to the bathroom. The buffets, the food's a bunch of slop. Yeah, it may look nice, but then you got the workers on there working for like $300 a month. You know, they work these 15-hour, 20-hour days. They don't get a vacation. You know, they're run by slave labor. The food is slop, and you know, folks, it's time that the cruise industry goes bankrupt. And the people that run it, we all know what the fate of those is that push this agenda. Because we know they're diametrically opposed to Jesus Christ and human life. As they claim to be acting in our best interest, they're promoting an agenda from the pit of hell as they try to lure us and trick us onto these floating trap doors, right? As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. We will not be giving our money to these filthy corporations that are trying to lure people back under a false pretense, promoting these lies, making positions that force people to undergo medical procedures against their will. All so they can go lose their money in the rigged slot machines and get diarrhea from all this highly processed food, right? Take this cruise and shove it, ladies and gentlemen. This has been another message of the Fullerton Informer. P.O. Box 21, Fullerton, California, 92834. Web at thefullertoninformer.com, WiFiDangers.com, VaxDangers.com, CellTowerDangers.com, 5GDangers.com. And understand, folks, all these ships have had upgrades to their Wi-Fi systems and their air conditioning systems. And let me tell you, if you have not paid attention during this last year and a half, everything they're telling you is for your own good is just the opposite purpose. Trust me, I'm not a doctor. Take care.